Get the Friendo Club set up today and get access to over 700 Going In Raw bonus episodes, our monthly Big Blue predictions challenges, and the ability to ask questions at Going In Raw. We also offer the Steve and Larson comic book and exclusive Friendo Club t-shirt. Just hit join here at youtube.com/Steve and Larson or go to patreon.com/Steve and Larson to sign up. Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you need to be listening to. It's Wednesday. That means we're looking at your hot takes and giving you our takes on your takes. Takes upon takes upon takes, Larson.
All the takes.
All the takes. Let's go ahead and
Hottest
dive into it, man. We're on the road to WrestleMania. And, of course, big topic of conversation from this past episode of Raw, from this week's episode of Raw. Dustin Martin says, if the Roman Seth Punk match main events night one, it'll be an extremely underwhelming conclusion to the CM Punk main event chase story. His first main event after waiting so long should be night two and should be for a title. If that means waiting another year, then so be it. This is a conversation that we had on the show, on the Raw review this week.
Yeah.
So walk us through this one. Do you agree with this, Larson?
So essentially the idea here is that Punk, having not won the Rumble, having not won the Chamber, therefore not getting one of the two title matches, would somehow fail upward and still main event night one of WrestleMania. I guess the idea being the star power in the ring between Roman, Seth, and Punk would be enough to justify the main event of night one, even though none of the participants involved won any of the matches that I just had mentioned. There is an element where it seems like CM Punk, on his road to main eventing WrestleMania, should actively do something. I'm going to use the word earn, but actively do something to achieve that moment.
Earn? No, I think earn is the right word to use here, actually.
And I don't know if this is it, if this is a situation where it seems like we're getting Roman Seth. Punk says, Heyman, favor time. I won in this match. All right, you're getting the main event of WrestleMania on a favor. It seems kind of not the strongest conclusion to his story right now, which is, I want to main event WrestleMania.
What is Seth Rollins' current biggest goal? What's his story right now, ostensibly?
Deprive CM Punk of WrestleMania main event spot.
Right. If somehow, some way baked in to the Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins feud is they main event night one, Rollins' goal needs to be to keep CM Punk from getting into that match. And you're 1,000% right. CM Punk should not just be able to, hey, I got a, get out of jail free card. I get to go straight to the WrestleMania main event because I was in a match back in November.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be that easy.
Mm-mm.
And I honestly do think that probably the story should be Seth robbed Punk of that. He robbed Punk of the main event. It should at this point be CM Punk simply wants to enact vengeance for that. His story this year is done. He doesn't get the main event. Therefore, the triple threat doesn't get the main event because honestly, there should be some, now that there are two main events, and I understand certain years, like for example, last year, they're going to want to use that night one main event to further the night two main event and to, or to do the Stone Cold thing where they have something so big that's not the title that it deserves night one. This isn't Stone Cold's return match, which by the way, in retrospect, I kind of feel like they should never have done in the first place, but it was a big deal. I know it was a hot, there's Steve's hot take is Stone Cold shouldn't have come back. I can't stand that they did that half-assed, it's not really a match, it's a confrontation.
Then it was a match. Then it was a match because they had a finish.
Right, exactly. So why they didn't just advertise it as a match in the first place?
Because Stone Cold didn't want to commit to a match because he didn't know if he'd be up for it.
That's stupid. Yes, you're absolutely right. And that's bad. Either commit to the damn thing so you can advertise a match or don't do it. Anyways, sorry. Not what we're talking about here. No, Seth won. He got his way. Punk's not in the main event, and this shouldn't main event. Rhea, Io, Bianca should main event because that feels like a big deal for a title, which should be night one main event.
Yeah, and then, I did a brief meta research in that. I looked at 2 WrestleMania cards to see if there was ever a time when the either Rumble winner or Chamber winner did not main event the card. So, for example, Nakamura, the year he won the Rumble, that was middle of Mania 34, middle of that card. Asuka won the Rumble that same year. That was very early in that year's Mania card. Main event was Brock versus Roman.
And I'm assuming Brock versus Roman, neither of them won the Chamber. They probably did something else with the Chamber that year.
Maybe Roman won the Chamber this year. I don't remember. Let's remember the Rumble winners that year. Gotcha. And then the following year, Becky won that Rumble, I believe, to get in the main event. Into 35?
Did she win the Rumble? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if she did. I mean, she was super over at that point.
Anyways, so I guess the point is, would they do a WrestleMania? I know the answer is yes, they would, because they have done it. They did it last year. Where... No, because Cody won the Rumble in main event night 2. I'm just wondering if they would want to do a situation where at least one of the Rumble winners was not in a main event. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To keep the Rumble win feeling as important as possible.
I don't think they care about that anymore.
They probably don't. I'm just for the sake of conversation.
No, absolutely. They build it so that it is, let's see here, Elimination Chamber from that year, the 34. I think that was probably Roman here. Let's see here. Roman Reigns. Yeah, Roman Reigns.
Okay, so Roman won
for
the Chamber
for the Universal Championship match. No, dude, I think the Rumble and the Chamber are kind of, I think that's just whatever they feel is hot, they roll with. I think that especially Triple H just sort of feels like as long as you write it, then you could do it. They're going to call Gunther versus Jey Uso. They'll probably continue to call it a main event. And to be honest with you, given that his name is main event, they might feel that should main event night 1, which is stupid because God, you want to talk about a lame ass build.
Yeah.
But getting back to the Punk Roman stuff, I feel at this point Punk's thing has got to be vengeance. Yeah. He's talked about 2 very distinct things: the Rumble and the Chamber. Didn't win either of them, so he's done. His path is done.
Yep.
All he could do now is beat up the guy that took it from him, Seth Rollins. So I feel like it should be next year.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah.
Now the thing is, like, are they going to recognize that Jay Gunther shouldn't be anywhere near the night 1 main event?
I mean, they have, 4 weeks to turn it around? 5 weeks?
I feel like Rhea, Io, Bianca has kind of a head start on that.
Yeah, very much.
I don't think they're going to get lapped by Jay and Gunther, but, I guess that's not
I know Gunther said 10 weeks of hell, but hey, 5 weeks of hell maybe.
We're down to 1 month of hell. I negotiated
I'm finally getting around to your weeks of hell, yes.
I'm finally getting around to it. Yeah. Let's go with this next one here. Go Birds, says Seth Rollins is the best Shield member and the most underrated superstar of his generation. What do we always call Seth Rollins, Larson? The what of
the
his
Bret
generation?
Hart of current day WWE, and there are some parallels. I think. Let's take these 2 parts of this take individually. Best member of the Shield. He's the best wrestler of the Shield.
He's far and away the best wrestler of the Shield.
The best in-ring performer of the 3 members of the Shield.
He's turned into the best talker of the Shield.
Yeah. Roman probably has the advantage in terms of charisma and presence.
Yeah, okay, so the thing about Roman Reigns is that from day 1, Vince recognized that Roman has aura. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you just have it. Mm-hmm. you just it's there.
Yeah.
But That's one box out of like a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
And Seth checks all the other boxes.
Yeah.
So a case 1,000%. Let me ask you this.
Sure. Yes.
Out of the
Jon Moxley is worst member of S.H.I.E.L.D. Next question.
Man, I don't even have to ask you that question. We're on the same page on that. That's an ice cold take, baby. Nah, let me ask you this question. Out of the 3 members of the Shield,
Sure.
and I think I know the answer to this question, who's got the best single moment of them all?
Oh, it's Seth cashing in at Mania 31.
Seth cashing in at Mania 31.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And even if it's not that, you could probably say it's Seth betraying the Shield.
You could say that, yeah. Yeah.
I think, yeah, Seth has kind of all that on lock. And yet, because he lacks Roman's aura, they never really rolled with him as the Roman.
Which is where the Bret Hart comparison
Which is where the Bret Hart comparison is.
You know, Bret, accomplished worker, got all the accolades you can get in WWE, basically. Mm-hmm. And yet, despite assurances seemingly from Vince that he would be the guy, never really seemed like the guy. And that's kind of the same with Seth. He's been given plenty of opportunities to be world champion, have long reigns. But it's never felt like, all right, we're building the company around him. Even when he won the title initially via that cash-in, it was all set up for Roman to beat him.
It was, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The closest he probably got, even then, like babyface Seth when he beat Brock, that character just wasn't clicking.
And that was like that. Honestly, that was like the third most important main event on that show because he had Kofi Mania and Becky both, as what you could consider, co-main events. No, but here's the thing though. This is the flip side to that. Seth Rollins is by a long shot, and I don't mean it's close. And I'm a Bret Hart fan. I like Bret. Seth Rollins has been way more over than Bret ever was. I mean, when he had those arenas, and still, last night, we're filming this on Tuesday, last night on Raw, that crowd, that MSG crowd, was chanting Seth's song to CM Punk. That does not happen very often.
No. Nope.
He is wildly popular. He is really over. It's just he came up in the era of Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about that?
But, I guess here's a way to look at it. Seth he may not be Roman in the eyes of the company, but he's so important to Roman's story that without Seth Rollins, the Roman that we have now would not exist.
Oh, and don't get it twisted. He's incredibly important to the company right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's because he is such a accomplished wrestler. Mm-hmm. He is like the most dependable probably competitor in the men's division.
All things are relative. He hasn't been disrespected nearly to the degree that Bret Hart was either. It's just all things in context. Against Roman Reigns, Seth has never really had a chance to be the guy, booked in a proper way. But that being said, he's still incredibly important to the company. I think you and I are both going to be rooting for Seth.
Yeah, at WrestleMania. Yeah, the triple threat. Yeah, I want Seth to win that.
Because here's the thing about that. Unless they really telegraph it, I don't know who's winning that match. I mean, you and I both kind of feel like they're probably going to do Punk because I think Punk's long-term story is next year he main events. It'd be disappointing if it'd be so half-assed and weird if they had Punk. We're getting back to the first question. Sorry. Yeah. Seth, in terms of being the Shield, best Shield member, I agree with that. Most underrated superstar of his generation.
I think he's generally seen as someone who's very good in the ring.
I think he's really high rated, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's pretty highly regarded from wrestling fans. Yeah, I think so.
Doesn't he have? I think he's actually also, if I'm not mistaken, last night on Raw they had the 2K25. I have the game.
His rating was higher than Punk's by one. Yeah, he was 93. Punk was 92.
Yeah, so I think he's fairly well rated, to be honest with you. Yeah. But we could definitely agree with the first one. I'm kind of curious if people want to load this up in the comments. Who's the best member of the Shield and why?
Yeah. Who can make a good, compelling case for Jon Moxley? That's what I want to see. More on Mox later. We got a hot take here from It's Aaron. It says Tribal Chief Roman Reigns was never good. Everyone else around him was.
This is a hot take.
This is a very hot take.
And here's the thing, though. I think there are some people out there that agree with this take. There are people, I've seen people out there who are like, Roman did have a spectacular supporting cast that absolutely, if it weren't for that, we would not have had the quality of the Tribal Chief.
Yeah.
That being said, his presence, his weight, the gravitas, the reactions, as small as they could be, I'm sorry, it was a brilliant fucking performance.
Yeah.
During that span of time, it was an absolutely masterful performance from everything from no pop, that kind of stuff, to when Jay says, I don't give a damn what the Tribal Chief thinks, and then Roman looks up after looking down the whole time. He looks up, his ears perk up. His reactions to the rest of the crew were everything.
Yeah, and that's nothing to kind of like. That's an important part of the storytelling process. If you want to see how good Roman was during the peak of the Tribal Chief story, watch that contract signing with Drew McIntyre.
Oh, that was awesome.
In Thunderdome, where they're not mic'd up, it's just camera mics. And the intimate setting. I don't know. Gosh, I wish there was a way they could do stuff like that still. They can't because the arena has to hear it. But
well, dude, every once in a while they do those great little cinematics, but they just don't do them very often.
I know.
They're so good, though.
There was just something about having the contract signing in a setting that we're kind of used to. Understand the Thunderdome aspect of it was different.
Sure.
But in the ring, but presenting it in a way that just felt so much more intimate, I really enjoyed that segment. And Roman was so good, to talk about Drew being the secondary champion. Yeah. Gosh, he was so good in that. So
you got anywhere between 11 and 18,000 people. Really changes the dynamic a little bit.
It does. It changes how you can tell the stories.
Yeah, but no, man, hard to disagree. But a lot of people, I think, have echoed the sentiment. They see the subtleties and they think boring. They don't really, that's not their jam. They want more. I think people are just used to the more theatrical nature of wrestling performances. And I think Roman did bring. I think when Roman was gone, he took some acting classes.
Yeah,
and whoever his acting teacher was taught him the intricacies of subtleties. It's sometimes less is more, and Roman oftentimes less. He brings a lot to the table with a lot less.
And also Roman's character throughout this wasn't. I'll use the word dynamic in that it didn't really change a whole lot. He was Roman Reigns. You knew what drove him, you knew what motivated him, and he didn't really deviate from that. Whereas Jay, he had a journey. Sammy had a journey. Even Jimmy, to a degree, especially early on, had a journey. Their characters all evolved during the course of this bloodline story, whereas Roman's didn't, at least not to the same degree. So therefore, he didn't necessarily have the same kind of showcase moments like
Peaks
Jay and
valleys.
Sammy at the Rumble.
Sure.
Stuff like that. So I guess I could see, if you're looking at it in that respect, that, you look at Sammy's performance because he had the journey, Jay's performance because he had the journey. Those were standouts easily, and at times did they overshadow Roman? Maybe, but that's not to say that Roman was not good.
His role was, Roman was being driven by a thing, and to see him veer off course was the thing. You're right. The other guys, they were on a journey which has a lot of different peaks and valleys and twists and turns. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Atticus has a hot take. Says, Naomi is right about Jade. She knew who attacked her before the chamber match, and what did she do? She doesn't tell Bianca anything and blindsides her during the match. That's not what a friend does. Bianca was traumatized. It's a miracle she even won the match. So there's a couple things here. Naomi says Naomi's right about Jade. Jade knew who attacked her before the chamber match. Jade didn't care about Bianca is what the argument here is.
Yeah.
I've seen people with signs that say Naomi was right. Naomi did nothing wrong.
Oh, you have?
There was somebody in the crowd, I think it was last night. Said Naomi was right. Maybe it was on SmackDown.
Maybe it was Atticus that had that sign.
Could be. I love that Naomi would have fans who would be backing her play on this. Naomi she lays out an understandable argument.
Mm-hmm.
She sees this new person come in and immediately sort of attach themselves to Bianca. If you want to get a little bit on the meta side to it, you could say, given how stellar a wrestler Bianca is, and you can analyze the matches that take place in the story and how Bianca's got to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Naomi's a veteran. She can handle her own in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
So she can look at that situation. Now, the problem is Naomi physically attacked a person backstage and laid her out on a card. She was out for months.
Yes. That is an issue.
Yeah.
Can't look past that.
Probably not.
You know, I appreciate that WWE, I guess AEW as well, when wrestling companies present their villains, their bad guys, who aren't one-dimensional. It's the bad guys who make good points. We bring up that all the time. And it makes for more interesting, compelling adversaries than someone who's just mean for the sake of being mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and the baby faces and the heels, they should have dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And their motivations should be understandable. Like, you may not agree with it. If they're a bad guy, you probably certainly should not agree with it. But you should understand where the character is coming from and what's driving that action.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I agree with that. The motivation is sound, and I hope we continue to see an evolution of Naomi's character,
mm-hmm.
given what happened. You know, Bianca walking away and telling Jade, "Hey, go ahead. This is your business now." I'm interested to see what happens with her on SmackDown on Friday. But yeah, no, I can understand this point of view. But again, instead of I like also the idea that, because, you know, this hot take points it out. She knew who attacked her before the chamber match. And what does she do? She doesn't tell Bianca anything. I love that we've been blessed with the creation of Lumen technology, which absolutely 1,000% explains.
That does.
Wrestlers, as we see them on TV, are the innies. When the cameras start rolling, they leave the arena, the vertigo shot.
Yeah,
they're outies now.
Yeah.
And even though the outies, I'm sure, are capable of watching television, maybe via Lumen contracts, they're not permitted to watch television, so they don't know what happened.
Well, I mean, if the outies do, when they switch back to being innies, yeah, because if they're outies, they'd call up the other person, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did that," or "Why did this happen?" or something.
I mean, they're just watching TV.
Yeah.
You know, so that'd have to be explained.
Maybe it's a situation of that if any wrestling comes across, you know, like Century, they hear or see it, bang, any.
Right, yeah. That could be. That could be, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how advanced that technology is in terms of if the person is processing something and then if a certain thing is processing, you know, any mode commences.
Yeah,
I don't know. But yeah, that's one of those wrestling tropes that is kind of, you scratch your head. Well, the people had a whole week, or in this case, months to talk about these things.
Yeah,
just don't.
Well, you know, Keir Egan works in mysterious ways, Larson. Maybe Bianca, Naomi, and Jade should go on an Ortbo.
Yeah, that worked out real well when the current crew on
Naomi
severed.
be trying to drown Jade.
I mean, I guess the rationale for Jade would be to deprive Naomi of an opportunity of winning the chamber match, and to deprive her of that opportunity, she had to keep the whole thing secret. Because if Bianca knew, the whole thing would blow up prior to that.
If you know you can't be there for 3 months and you want to control the situation,
mm-hmm.
I actually fully understand. You're out for, it's like you can't be there for 3 months. Hey, Larson, it was Hilton that did it. Well, then you're going to deal with that.
Yeah.
No. Hilton jacked me. Hilton laid me out on a car. I'm going to be the one to get my hands on him.
Well, then that's when we set up this plan where I bring Hilton in close, and then when you come back, pa.
Yeah, but I can't trust that you're going to see. Bianca's like a good person, and like I don't know if she's going to scheme to do that. She's going to probably go to Naomi and be like, "Why'd you do this? Why'd you do this?" You know, she's not going to be. I don't think Bianca as a character, currently the way she's presented, not NXT heel Bianca, has it in her to play this deceitful game for 3 months.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't know. Anyways, Bucket Dipper here has a hot take. Says, just because the Death Rider story hasn't been good doesn't mean the IWC should just ignore all the overall good to great work that Jonathan Moxley has done over the past 6 years. Larson, what's your problem with Jonathan Moxley, and why are you ignoring all the great to excellent work he's done over the past 6 years? Explain yourself. Don't wait for the translation.
So, I appreciate that Mox, when he left WWE, generated a measure of excitement within AEW and the independents, going to GCW, wrestling all around the country.
That independent promotion, New Japan.
And New Japan as well.
Yeah.
He provided a measure of excitement that got people talking, people interested in all the promotions he was working for, and that's a great thing. I enjoyed most of what he did with Kenny Omega during their title feud, even the feud they had before that. I thought some of the stuff he did with Eddie Kingston, when either they were feuding or when they were together as a team, was relatively entertaining. For much, those instances aside, for much of Jon Moxley / Dean Ambrose's career, my sense watching his work is, I feel like this should be better.
Yeah.
And that's just not recency bias. You know, like all through his WWE run, it's like, all right, he's entertaining. He's got great comedic timing. He's funny. But it seems like he should be doing more as a character. And he leaves, and it's weird. He actually does less as a character. He's just, I'm mean dude who likes to fight. And sometimes he's mean dude who has like a heart of gold. And now he's just mean dude who likes to fight.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been his character the past 6 years. And so the whole idea, especially in WWE, is like, wow, I'm really interested to see what he can do outside of the WWE system and have more say in what he does creatively. Well, it's been a lot more one-dimensional. And therefore, to me, not as interesting. So the sense with him is not, oh, he's lousy. I just feel like so much what he's done, I'm like, gosh, this should be a lot better than what it is. You know, there's times when an artist, whether it be a filmmaker, musician, you know, after achieving a measure of success and maybe releasing a series of work that are generally well regarded, release something that's not to the same standard. And I don't think it's uncommon for kind of a bit of a career reevaluation to happen when that's the case.
Yeah.
To look at their work within the context of their more recent, you know, release.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that you suddenly go back and everything they've done in the past that you liked, you say, no, this new work's crap, therefore the past work's crap. It just, you can maybe look past through their past work and think, okay, I see analogies, I see connections between this and that. And maybe in doing so, you gain a greater appreciation for their past work, or you say, all right, I see connections here I missed previously. What this new thing is that initially I wasn't that high on, it's all right. I don't think this happened in this instance with Mox, because I think his Death Rider stuff is just,
Yeah.
it's sunk in the entire main event scene in AEW.
So to bring it back to sort of like a wrestling analogy, the passage of time is kind of everything. He's actually the same age as Cody Rhodes.
That's
Cody
wild.
is incredibly relevant these days.
Yeah.
But also, Cody's still pretty new. To the WWE, he is, because
Yeah.
he's only been around since, what, 2022?
Yeah, you could consider the Cody Rhodes are now completely
Right.
different from the Cody Rhodes of
Right.
2010, 2016, his initial run WWE, yeah.
And even from his AEW run, I know it's the same character, I get that, but like he's presented in a way that just so much more fits what Cody Rhodes really should be. They found his potential. Mox has essentially been the same character. When he went to AEW 6 years ago, he was able to fully realize what he was able to do, 70% of in WWE with the Dean Ambrose character. He added 30% to it, and there you go. There's Mox, right? You can go to GCW, do some deathmatch stuff. You can do some deathmatch stuff in AEW. But basically, it's kind of the same guy, just a bit less phoned in, okay? Let's take this as a wrestling analogy then. He debuted on main roster in 2012. Late 2012.
November, yeah.
That's 13 years ago. So we've had 13 years of this character who's been kind of the same guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan had his huge main roster debut for WWF back in 1984, I think it was, right? I think, did he win? Yeah. And I think he won the title in early 85 or 84? 84, I think it was.
Okay.
It was 80, I don't know, whatever.
Against Iron Sheik, yeah.
Yeah, whenever that was. I think it was 84.
Yeah, I think it was 84.
13 years after that, what was that, 1997?
Yeah.
Granted, in 96, he had a career resurgence with the NWO. A complete character shift.
Yeah.
But right before then, we were looking at early 96 Hulk Hogan as around the same amount of time that we've been around Jon Moxley.
Yeah.
And early 96 Hulk Hogan was not compelling at all, and nobody cared about him. Right.
It was boring.
1993 Hulk Hogan at King of the Ring sold the fewest amount of tickets in the history of WWF pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't reinvent your character, it's no matter what. And I'm sorry, but this Death Riders Moxley is not much of a reinvention.
No.
It's just not. It's the same thing, but he's got a bad attitude. It ain't the same thing. He always had kind of a bad attitude.
Yeah, he's always had a bad attitude.
So that's my long way of saying he's just been around too long doing the same thing. And I'll be honest, I don't know if Moxley, now with a really, really good story, then maybe Mox can come alive. I just don't know what that story is, and I don't know that AEW can tell. Maybe Swerve can write some shit for him.
Hopefully. Something needs to happen that's compelling in the AEW main event scene, because since All Out, nope.
Mm-hmm.
It's been nothing.
Yeah.
We got a hot take here from Cole.
Cole
says Darby Allin should not beat Mox, leaving your company to climb a mountain. Well, it's not just any mountain. It's Mount Everest.
Wow, just a man. Under some shade at Mount Everest. Interesting.
I guess so. Anyways, leaving your company to climb a mountain while in the middle of a main event story, making the story lose all momentum until your return is not what a person who loves their company does. And if I, not Larson Cole, was Tony, I would pivot and have Hangman beat Mox.
Okay. So this is a terrible analogy. This is an awful analogy.
All right, I'm excited to hear it now.
You ready for this one?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Darby climbing Everest is Tony Khan's Brock Lesnar becoming the heavyweight champion in the UFC.
Okay, I understand that. It legitimizes him in the eyes of the wrestling fans.
So, like, Darby's going to... The difference is Brock didn't go do that for Vince McMahon.
No.
But he went out, he did something incredibly legitimate. And in the case of Darby, he's going to be probably metaphorically planting the flag of AEW on Mount Everest. Now, if there's an opportunity...
Maybe literally, we don't know.
Maybe literally. I mean, I would hope that he would take it back down because there's already enough trash up there.
Yes.
But we don't need more trash in the form of an AEW flag. But for a guy to go conquer Everest and come back, this is why I kind of feel like you and I have had this debate. Darby would get a bigger, this is a Schrodinger's pop, right?
Yeah.
We don't know which pop is going to be bigger because only one of them is going to happen.
Yeah.
But I feel like Darby coming back from Everest and beating Mox will get, partially because of the Everest thing, will get a bigger pop than if it was Will Ospreay, who would not climb Mount Everest.
I wouldn't put it past Will to climb Mount Everest. I don't know.
Oh, he might want to. We just have not heard that from him.
No,
Darby seemingly is going to do this.
Let me ask you this. Since they wrote Darby off with an injury.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why he's been off TV. It's not like in kayfabe, he's like, I'm out to climb Mount Everest. Does that change your... So like if they write him off because of injury, and then when he comes back, they start rolling video packages of him climbing Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm, yeah, which
like
they'll
for
do.
me, my first question would be like, these people just put him out for weeks, if not months, with injury. Why is he not back seeking revenge? Instead, he's climbing Mount Everest.
Oh, he's got to go find himself.
Okay, then that's got to be part of it.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. AEW, but though, there is, I know what you're saying, I do. There is an expectation, reasonable or not, that AEW fans are a little bit more clued into shit.
Yeah.
And so we kind of know that Darby's thing is he wants to climb Everest. I think, hasn't he mentioned
They've spoken about it on TV before. Yeah,
They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I do hope that he says, they laid me out, man. But while I was out, I realized I need to find myself. I need to go up to Everest. And then he goes and he finds himself and he plants a flag. And maybe that's his way. I knew I wanted to stick it to these guys. So I climbed Everest and I put a flag up there, man.
They got.
There's got to be some connection there.
There has to be. He can't just show up and they run B-roll of him climbing Mount Everest and not have it motivate his character in the story they're trying to tell right now. Because that's gonna seem a little odd.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, let me ask you.
Hey,
this.
I got beat up by these guys, so I decided to take a vacation and climb Mount Everest. It's like
Mount Everest. Wow, a vacation? You're calling Everest a vacation, Larson? Into the shade. What is Mount Everest catching its strays today from all points? First from
I'm not trying to throw shade at Mount Everest. I'm just saying that's how it's going to come across. Maybe.
I don't know.
I decided to take time off from my day job to go do some extracurricular activities. You know what I mean?
Bro, if they show some GoPro footage of Darby Allin's point of view climbing Everest and he looks down and there's a giant chasm that he has to climb over lest he go cratering down 100 feet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that'll get the point across. I mean, yeah, dude, I get it. They wrote him off so that he can. What would it have been better if he was like, I don't like these Death Rider guys. I'm gonna go climb Everest to clear my head so I can come back stronger.
It should have been.
How do you rate that one?
It should have been related to what Mox said to him. You're not ready to be champion. I can't tell you why, but you're not.
I can't be ready until I climb Everest.
I mean, you got to find a more intriguing and compelling rationale than just that.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go and conquer the unconquerable or something like that. Then I could beat Mox. Something like those lines.
Yeah.
No, push myself to my limits like I never have before.
I mean, dude, come on. He's definitely gonna say something like that.
Yeah, they have to. If they don't find any kind of storyline explanation why he climbed Mount Everest, I'm not saying it's like a deal breaker because this story is already shit with Death Riders, but it's just gonna be a little bit. It's gonna be a hole in the story. All right, why is Mount Everest important to your journey as Darby Allin?
I could see Shivani doing a sit down or JR.
Totally.
Well, why'd you scale that big mountain? Man, what's up there that you're looking for? Myself!
Yeah. Darby Allin!
Oh, man. Diehard Homer has a hot take. That was a great conversation right there. Diehard Homer says, Mercedes is boring and she's faced no adversity in AEW. It's yet to be believable she'll lose anytime soon. Ospreay's already lost a few times.
The second Statlander match, I was like, I don't think it's going to happen, but it could. It could.
I thought the first one, there are times I was like, oh, shit. And then it didn't happen. And then the second time, I was like, oh, shit.
It's like, why have the rematch unless Statlander might get the win?
Yeah.
Listen, I understand, I apparently ruffled some feathers in our hot takes video, and I was like, oh, people who are critical of Mercedes AEW run apparently don't watch her matches.
Mm-hmm.
All I was trying to say is, despite probably substandard stories a lot of times, she managed to put on really good, compelling matches. That's the point I was trying to make.
No, she's not. I don't apologize. Mercedes
I'm
is
not
awesome.
apologizing. I'm not apologizing.
My lone gripe with Mercedes Mone
is her theme song and the letters are not in sync.
Yeah. I find, look, I know early on, she did have a hard time, I feel like, adjusting to AEW's promo style, which is basically, I guess, just go out there and do what you can do.
Yeah.
I feel like they've sort of fixed that to a degree.
Yeah, I feel like
they're shorter, and I feel like look, it may not be for everybody. I don't find her boring. I find her pretty funny, to be honest with you. For example, during her Harley feud, which I think helped. I thought it brought out a lot of good stuff from Mercedes. When Renee and the relationship with her and Renee is funny. Kind of reminds me of I don't know, Mean Gene and whoever. But she's like, yeah, no surprises today. Mercedes, how you doing? Oh, by the way, we've got this surprise. And she's like, why you said no surprise?
Yeah.
I thought that was funny stuff. It's good stuff. I like Mercedes. I think she's great.
No, I think she's great too. And that's not to say that her run in AEW has been flawless or without its bumps in the road. I think I think she needs her rival. She needs her primary rival.
I think so.
That they can come back to that story. I don't know who it is. Thought it was gonna be Willow. Still could be.
Yeah, dude, Willow they need to freaking do some stuff with Willow, man.
But that's something I feel like they need to get to at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Because if she has a strong rivalry, that's going to kick things up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can start telling interesting long-term stories rather than feud.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Last one here from Timor. Hot take. AEW desperately needs people to coordinate what spots will occur across the matches in a pay-per-view so they don't repeat spots. There is a reason. Sorry, there is no reason for there to be a thumbtack spot in the cage match when 2 matches earlier there was a broken glass spot, which is essentially the same thing, but more dangerous. It lessens the impact of the latter spot because it's something we already saw in the same show. I understand this perspective.
I do too. Although I do kind of take issue with claiming that the broken glass, they did spill the broken glass on the mat, didn't they?
Yeah.
Okay, I will say this. I'll counter with this. Because I pretty much agree with this. I'll put it this way. I understand it. Doesn't bother me though. Unless it's very similar. Like the thumbtack stuff, if they did, I'll put it this way. If you had 2 cage matches and both cage matches, they did Spanish Fly. For me personally, it has to be very similar for me to be like, they already did that. Or a story beat that's similar in 2 matches that's very similar. And I'm like, well, they just did that. In terms of something relatively superficial, like putting a bunch of sharp shit on the floor, it doesn't really bother me too much because the 2 matches were otherwise so different.
You know, I think it's, at least as it relates to Revolution, it's less, in my mind, a matter of similar spots and more so the matches being so close to each other on the card.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had the Tony match, you had Kenny and Takeshita, then you had the cage match.
Yeah, right.
Like if the cage match had opened the show,
mm-hmm.
you have 4 or 5 matches. I mean, actually, Tony and Mariah should have made an event. It should have been the last. You bookend Revolution with your 2 most physical matches.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4 hours in between to get a variety of wrestling.
Yeah.
So when the more brutal match, second of the brutal matches happens down the line, all right, you've had a lot of wrestling in between, so it's still fresh.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's not something we just saw 45 minutes ago. I think that's more the issue in terms of sequencing the matches as opposed to, all right, we have 2 matches with 2 spots with sharp objects in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just spread that type of stuff out a bit more.
Yeah. I don't know. It also depends. I feel I do. For me, it also depends on like, okay, how are these matches fundamentally separating themselves from each other?
I get that, but there's still the visceral experience of seeing someone get dropped on sharp things, And if you just saw it 20 minutes ago and you see it again, it's like, well, it's going to make the most impact the first time you see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, keep in mind, it was actually literally about 20 minutes into the match when Ospreay did that. And they get right to the match. And it was probably 5 minutes. Yeah, so you're right. It was probably like separated by no more than a half hour. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
But that's something AEW's had a problem with a lot is sequencing their pay-per-view cards to maximize impact and maximize flow and pace.
I think from a macro standpoint, they do need to coordinate better. I 1,000% agree with that.
It's like, I don't know if Tony Khan kind of pays attention to the story of the show,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the ebbs and flows of the story beats that occur during the course of the shows and the spots, the style of matches, what seems like a natural crescendo to the show versus not. Because obviously hindsight 2020, but you watch Revolution and obviously the natural crescendo to that show is Tony beating Mariah May with literally the end on the trunk.
How do you not... how are you... It's like polishing off Sgt. Pepper. How do you not know the end is where you end your pay-per-view? How do you not see that you had the opportunity? Because the rest of the show was an all-timer. The rest of the show was so good.
It was really good.
How do you not get people talk. That's leaving them on such a high. And you want to leave them on that high so that, any complaints about the Death Riders, that was 5 hours ago.
Exactly. If you have, even if it's a 20-minute Mox coat match, it goes the same way. Swerve still jumps off, from the stands onto Mox, and you go right into the next match, Kenny versus Takeshita or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the match itself was slow and plodding and boring, but you have that moment, and it's right into another match that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, you get the people hyped up, and then, ooh, wow, Kenny's coming out.
Exactly.
Video game stuff.
And I get it. It's their world title. It's the title.
Fuck that. Nah, fuck that.
No, I'm just saying. I understand in a larger picture.
Yeah.
In terms of how wrestling promoters think, the world title is typically seen as the top title and therefore main events. I don't agree with it in this instance because it doesn't fit into the flow of the show you're putting on. The match didn't. The booking didn't. That match stuck out like such a sore thumb in relation to the rest of the show. Mm-hmm. You bury that shit in the middle.
You go with what's hot.
Yes.
You go with what's hot.
Yes.
Kudos to Tony Khan and whoever he worked with on that Tony Storm match. Mm-hmm. Because, my God, they put together a fucking masterpiece, Larson.
They did.
An absolute masterpiece. And for it to not end the pay-per-view with the words "the end," you had an opportunity. You had Pet Sounds right there, man.
Exactly. I
don't know. I'm busting out all these late 1960s album references.
I know you did, and one that influenced the other at that.
I know, right? What the heck? Anyways,
but like I said, it's typically promoters. They put the world title match at the main event of the card, regardless of if it makes sense.
They do, and it's bollocks.
And it's annoying.
Yeah.
I get that's just traditionally how it's done.
Yeah.
But gosh darn, when you have an opportunity to really end the show on such a crescendo, fucking do it.
Yeah, I agree.
No one's invested in this world title story anyways. Put in the middle of the card. No one's going to give a shit.
Online. Look at what people are saying about it.
Yeah, no one's going to give a shit if it's not the main event.
Yeah. Look, I respect and totally appreciate everything Mox has done for the past 6 years. The great to excellent work he's put in.
Where'd Steve go?
Hello? Anyways. That's going to do it for this edition of Hot Takes. Be sure to sub to the channel because next week we're going to have another episode of Hot Takes and maybe yours will be read, but you won't know. You won't know if there's a Hot Takes thread unless you're subbed to the channel.
Correct.
And we're on the road, by the way, to 202,202
I can do some quick math and try to figure out.
We're only like 103 away.
We're 99 away.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, 99 away.
Let's get them subs.
Yeah.
Hopefully maybe by WrestleMania. We usually get a huge boost to WrestleMania.
We do. Yeah.
I think we'll blow past it through the show during the show.
It's possible.
Yeah, it could be. Anyways.
I mean, over the last month, we've got 240 subs, so.
Ooh. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it. Till next time. We'll see you around.